Okay, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't have too much of an outline for this video. I just headed over to Keep Trade Cut and looked at the running backs that have lost the most value this offseason. And I really wanted to dive into them, try to figure out why are these guys losing so much value in dynasty leagues and see if we can possibly find some buy low names. But of course, before we get into it, drop a like, subscribe if you play Dynasty. And if you want to get in a draft with us this offseason, last offseason, we did over 700 drafts on Underdog. They just launched $1 million best ball contest. You can find the link in the comment section. Find it in the description of this video. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And on top of it, you will get our 2023 Dynasty rankings with just a $10 deposit. But that should be about it. And let's go through. Let's dive into DeAndre Swift. And with Swift, it's been a steady decline since the beginning of this season, where if you're going to be looking at what we had right before the redraft season kicked off, DeAndre Swift in Dynasty back in September was the running back 2, according to Keep Trade Cut. The running back 2, I'm not going to lie, I had DeAndre Swift as a top 5 running back in our Dynasty rankings, and now he's actually fallen down to being the running back 10. If you're looking at his overall ranking, it's consistently trended down as well, and it kind of makes sense if you're looking at what happened to Detroit this past year, where the Detroit Lions were phenomenal. Like, Detroit was, in my mind, probably one of the best offenses compared to what the expectations were coming into the season, where, I mean, if we're going to be looking at just total numbers, you ended up having 29 passing touchdowns to only 7 interceptions for this team. To go along with it, you had 23 rushing touchdowns. So you had over 50 touchdowns for this Detroit Lions offense. It's Detroit. I don't think anybody was really expecting this. And if we're going to go through and look at the running backs, Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns. Let me repeat that. Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns this season. So even with this offense having one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, I mean, DeAndre Swift not really getting there because he's second fiddle behind Jamal. He only has 5 rushing touchdowns. Now, of course, he adds 3 through the air. So in my mind, it's actually a little impressive that DeAndre Swift still has 8 total touchdowns, given the fact that Jamal Williams accounted for 17 of these. Now, Jamal Williams is an unrestricted free agent, but I think everybody and their mom assumes that Jamal Williams will be back with the Detroit Lions this next season. Jamal Williams will be 28 years old, and I'm assuming that they're going to continue to operate with a running back by committee. But there is an outside risk to investing into DeAndre Swift, why I will not call him a buy low player just yet, because I do want to be on the record. DeAndre Swift can be a phenomenal asset in fantasy, even as a committee running back, because you're never assuming DeAndre Swift's going to be seeing every single touch out of his backfield. What you're wanting for with DeAndre Swift is the Aaron Jones, the Alvin Kamara mold. We've been talking about this since he came into the league in 2020. You're wanting every single target out of the backfield, and you're wanting touchdown upside in the red zone. This past season, the touchdown upside wasn't there, but I think it will be going forward. But instead of investing into DeAndre Swift right now, I am going to be honest with you, I'm probably going to be sitting this out for a couple months. I'm probably going to be looking back into DeAndre Swift this summer, because I do think there's an outside chance that this Detroit Lions offense is one that has no holes, that may end up investing into a running back in this year's NFL draft, where even if we think Jamal Williams is a short-term answer in Detroit, they could go out there and maybe they grab Zach Charbonnet in the 3rd round. Maybe they go way out of left field and take Bijan Robinson in the 1st. I've seen that mock draft happen a decent amount of times. So I'm not going to be going out of our way and investing too much into DeAndre Swift at this very second. If we get to this summer and Detroit decides not to add any rookie running backs here, then at the price point of where he's currently going, according to Keep Trade Cut at 46, right next to Jameson Williams and Austin Eckler, then I'd be willing to go through and buy in. But now our next guy, Naji Harris. Naji Harris, another running back on his rookie contract. Naji Harris, another guy that is consistently fallen across the board. And I'm not going to lie, we also had him very similar to DeAndre Swift as a top 5 running back in Dynasty coming into the season. I mean, if we're going to be looking at his peak this offseason, he actually peaked at running back 2. If y'all remember, it was Jonathan Taylor 1, Naji Harris, DeAndre Swift 2 and 3. They kind of oscillated back and forth throughout the entire offseason. With Naji Harris, it's not like you ended up with the Jamal Williams type scenario where Jalen Warren, yes, he played, but come on. It's just not like Jalen Warren was some massive X factor here for this offense. I mean, if we're going to be going through and looking at what Naji Harris did this season, barely cracked 1,000 rushing yards in 17 games played. And in my mind, what the number one negative thing with the Naji Harris season was the dramatic fall that you had as a pass catcher, where in year one as a rookie, when Ben Roethlisberger couldn't move to save his life, when Ben Roethlisberger had all the passing volume in the world, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. He just checked the ball down to Naji Harris. The man almost had 100 targets as a rookie, where that regressed this season. Naji Harris this past year actually fell down to about 53 targets, which honestly sounds a lot more reasonable for Naji Harris going forward. Coming out of Alabama, and nobody thought that he was going to be some elite pass down running back. Now, Jaylen Warren did see 33 targets. I honestly don't expect that to go anywhere. I think this is probably going to be what we should assume you have from Naji Harris going forward. So the question is, with the new role for Naji Harris in this offense compared to what we had as a rookie, is this a fine price point to invest? Right now, he's going directly after Ramondre Stevenson, Trey Lance, Christian Watson, Michael Pittman. And I'll be honest with you, because Naji Harris has the draft capital, because I'm very confident in his job security going forward, he will catch the ball to the backfield, but is not going to ever be a phenomenal passing down running back. I would probably rather have him over Michael Pittman. Like, if we're looking at underdog drafts right now where you can get him in the 4th round, I think it's a reasonable pick. I kind of view Naji Harris how you should have viewed David Montgomery back in like 2020, where he was very early on his rookie contract, not really a special player, but he's going to be a volume hog and he has the job security. So I'm fine with Naji Harris at his price point. I think if you wanted to buy into Naji at this price, it'd be fine. Now, going over to our next guy, we're going to be looking at Nick Chubb here. Nick Chubb's someone that I've actually been drafting a decent amount. Like, if we're going to look at where he was right before the season, Nick Chubb, I mean, if we're going to be going to October 10th here, my birthday, he was running back 5 according to Keep Trade Cut. Whereas now he's fallen down to being anywhere from running back 14, running back 13, depending on the day that you're looking at. Of course, when Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson get added in here, he's going to be down to running back 15. And with Nick Chubb, he's a little bit older. Yeah, he was drafted in 2018, but stayed all 4 years at Georgia due to the devastating knee injury. Now, what is interesting is the situation with Kareem Hunt going forward. Kareem Hunt may not be on the Cleveland Browns this next season. And if that were to be the case, I think that would be a massive positive for Nick Chubb, who we've seen be able to catch the ball to the backfield at times. They really don't use him that way when Kareem Hunt's available. But this past year, I mean, Nick Chubb had a good season. Like, Nick Chubb, yes, he's going to be old. He's going to be 28 this next year. He had 1,500 rushing yards. He had 37 targets out of the backfield. This is the most he has seen since 2019, his sophomore year, where you ended up having Kareem Hunt suspended for the beginning portion of the season. I think we all assume that Deshaun Watson will be better this next season in Cleveland. We don't know exactly how good he's going to be. So I actually like investing in a Nick Chubb on a contending roster. And right now, if you're looking at those redraft leagues on Underdog, especially in a half PPR format, if you get Nick Chubb late 3rd, I'm all about that. But now let's go over to our next guy. Joe Mixon has been plummeting in these drafts. I understand why. Obviously, he had some off-the-field stuff happening. What's actually funny, Joe Mixon drafted in 2017 compared to Nick Chubb 2018. Joe Mixon's actually the younger back out of the two. And if we're going to look at Joe Mixon, the pass catcher, Joe Mixon's consistently increased his role out of the backfield. I mean, you've had 26 targets back in 2020. That goes to 48 targets in 2021. And then only in 14 games played, he has 75 targets this past season. 75 targets, 60 receptions, both career highs for Joe Mixon, 441 receiving yards. Now, of course, the production on the ground dramatically comes down. You end up with the Cincinnati Bengals skewing a little bit more pass happy. The main issue with Joe Mixon is going to be what we saw with the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs. The reason, if you pull up his Keep Trade Cut graph, it just goes straight to nothing, is in the playoffs, they liked Samaje Perine a decent amount. Like, if we're going to go through and pull up the Chiefs' loss here, I know some people are speculating Mixon's hurt, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know what was going on, but Perine was on the field more. It wasn't just like a 50-50 split. Perine was on the field more than Joe Mixon when it mattered the most in a 20-23 loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. So if we see the fact that they're using Perine more when it matters most and combine this with Joe Mixon's contract, where yeah, it's not like it's a no-brainer to move on from Joe Mixon, but they could move on from him and save $7 million. It's definitely a possibility. So when it comes to Joe Mixon and buying in on him, I mean, you really don't want Joe Mixon if he's off the Cincinnati Bengals. And if we're going to be looking at his price point, while he's fallen, he's running back 18 around 83. He's going directly before Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Rashad Bateman. I mean, he's going significantly before Isaiah Pacheco, significantly before someone like AJ. I don't know. I don't see why I would buy in on Joe Mixon. Whereas if we're going to look at some of the other veteran running backs that have been plummeting that are actually a little bit cheaper, I think you could find a better value elsewhere. Like if we're going to go through and say, pull up Aaron Jones, for example. I really like looking at this Aaron Jones situation because Aaron Jones just restructured his contract. Aaron Jones looks like his job's going to be safe in Green Bay. I initially thought that he would be a cut candidate, but great for him that he's going to be staying with the Green Bay Packers. And if you're going to be looking at the difference in price between these two guys, Aaron Jones is down there as the running back 25 after Tyler Algier, Cam Akers, AJ Dillon, Mike Williams in a much more reasonable range where he has the job security. And honestly, I think from a median projection standpoint, these players are somewhat comparable. Same draft class, but keep in mind, like we said, Joe Mixon came out incredibly young at OU. I believe he's the youngest running back in the 2017 class. Aaron Jones is going to be a year and a half older, but still, with Aaron Jones this past season, the man had 72 targets, career high. The man at the same time, 59 receptions, career high. To go along with this, 213 carries, 1,121 rushing yards, career high. The number one thing that was in the dumpster for Aaron Jones and why he was very bad from a fantasy football standpoint is the touchdowns weren't there. The man had 2 rushing touchdowns. That was a career low. That's lower than his rookie season when he only had 81 rush attempts. The man only had 5 receiving touchdowns off of the 79 targets. That's significantly lower than we've come to expect from his historical touchdown rate. So Aaron Jones will be less efficient than we've come to expect. This Green Bay Packers offense will be worse than we've come to expect. But given the fact that he has the job security, I would prefer investing into Aaron Jones than I would paying a higher price for Joe Mixon. If they were the same price, maybe we can go back and forth. But at the discount, give me Jones. And then looking at someone that is very, very cheap now, Alvin Kamara is the running back 30. Alvin Kamara is going directly before Dalton Schultz, David Njoku, and Kadarius Toney. Now with Alvin Kamara, obviously you have massive suspension risk this next season. Like, he dodged that bullet this past year. So great news for you if you drafted Alvin Kamara, even though, I mean, it's not like Alvin Kamara was going out there and winning your fantasy football league anyway. But if we're going to the contract situation here, Alvin Kamara is pretty much guaranteed a spot on the New Orleans Saints roster this next season. Now, in 2024, they could move on from him and save $7 million. The same figure the Cincinnati Bengals could save from moving on from Joe Mixon. Today, Alvin Kamara is 27 years old, is going to be 28 by this next season. Now, very similar to the issue that you had with Aaron Jones, the primary issue that we saw with Alvin Kamara this past year is he didn't score touchdowns. Alvin Kamara had 4 total touchdowns this season. If we're going to go through and look at his historical numbers based on his career, rookie season, 13. Second year, 18. Third year, 6. Fourth year, 21 touchdowns. Then in 2021, he had 9, and this year had 4. So lower than we've ever seen. The volume is going down, but it's not like it's horrible. 223 rush attempts this past season. I mean, the man at the same time still had 77 targets. So I'm not sitting here and trying to say that Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara are number 1 and number 2 buy low candidates at the running back position, and you need to go at them. Of course, you would only ever think about adding these players if you were a contender. But if you were a contender and if you felt that there was great value with some of these discount running backs, if we had to choose some names to buy out of this list, give me the Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamaras of the world where, yes, they're going to be significantly worse than where they were during their prime. But compared to someone like a Joe Mixon that you're having to pay a significantly higher price tag for, you have job security and a much cheaper price tag. So let me know what you're thinking. I mean, obviously, nobody really wants these running backs, and that's why they've fallen so much in these rankings. But if you enjoyed the video, go down there, drop a like, subscribe if you play Dynasty, get in a draft with us on Underdog. You can find that link in the comment section in the description. Promo code FLOCK, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar for 200. And also with a $10 deposit, you will get our 2023 Dynasty rankings. But I think that's it. I really do appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day, and I really hope I get to see you with the video tomorrow.